Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Candace and I'm the author of two Christian romances. The first one is What Goes Around Comes Around, and the second one is called Good Things Come, both available on Amazon. And I have two special guests today. Um, One is Professor Kenyatta and his wife, retired educator slash administrator Janice Kenyatta. And both of them together have written a book called Black Folks Hair. And they first published the book, I believe, in 1996, and they've upgraded it over the years. And I wanted to talk to them today about Black women in their hair because, when writing romances, hair becomes a big issue. So I wanted to, have them come on and talk about Black hair. So if you could introduce yourself, Professor, and
You want
Janice
me to go
Kenyatta.
first?
Yeah,
Yep.
you can go 1st. Mhm.
Okay. My name is Janice Kenyatta, as Candace mentioned, and I am retired, but my career span of years of 42 years. I have a career span of being an educator as well as a educational administrator.
Okay, I'm Kamou Kenyatta, Professor Kenyatta. I currently teach at Northampton Community College in Pennsylvania and Lafayette College. I used to teach at the William Patterson University for years in the Africana Studies department. Africana Studies is my specialty.
Okay. So I think the first question I really wanted to know is I love reading the book. I actually read the book and I got a lot of information out of it, but I wanted to get your opinion. Why did you write the book? And how are things have changed since 1996? So would love to hear your insights about
Well,
that.
Kamau and I wrote this book from, I believe, different perspectives, but we sort of met in the middle of the road
Mhm.
as to why we did. So I wrote it we decided to collaborate on the book for different reasons. So I guess I'll start first, and then he can tell why he decided to collaborate, for us to collaborate to write the book together from a female and male perspective.
Okay.
But I used to teach high school at a vocational high school in Essex County. And well, I shouldn't start there. Let me go way back to one day he asked me, and he'll tell you why he did that. He asked me, "Why do you straighten your hair?" Now, back then in 90, what is it, 94, 90, 93,
93,
94,
94, something like that.
and you're asking a Black woman, "Why do you straighten your hair?" That's a loaded question. That's a loaded question because we're taught when I grew up as a teenager that when you turn 14 years old, 13, 14 years old, it's time to get your hair straightened for whatever reasons. And it's a generational thing for many people. It's a generational thing for many, many Black people. So I went through that period in the 60s where I did wear an afro. So I didn't wear straight hair all the time, but I did wear an afro in the 60s, the so-called Black Power movement during that time period. And then I went back to what I call assimilating, straightening my hair. And so Kamau came to me and he said, "Well, why do you straighten your hair?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean, why do I straighten my hair?" I straighten my hair because it's more manageable when it's straight. And I gave what we discovered were usual reasons for straightening your hair. It was more manageable, easier to take care of, look better around on my face. Just sort of superficial now that I'm thinking about it, excuses for why I straightened my hair. And then it ended up turning into a knockdown, drag out fight. And we explain that in the book.
Oh
When I say fight, not a fist fight, but a debate, an argument going back and forth.
Got it.
And so he opened up a can of worms at that point, and he got me to thinking, well, why do I straighten my hair? So and I started to ponder that question. But simultaneously, during that time period, before I decided to straighten my hair, to wear my hair natural, a couple of things happened during that time period. I was teaching high school at the time at a vocational technical school in Essex County. And I remember hearing some young Black girls at the end of class talking and having a big discussion about their hair. And one of the things that one of the young ladies said was, our hair, Black people, I don't like my hair. She said, Black people's hair is a curse. And that struck me. It was like an epiphany at that point when I heard her. And so I went home and I mentioned it to Kamau and I said, you know what, we should write a book. We should write a book to enlighten people about our hair and You know, the love of one's hair and the hate of one's hair. Where did that all come from? Blah, blah, blah. And I knew he's the historian in the family. And that I thought the history was very important. How did we get to this point that many Black women straighten their hair? So it was a lot of questions in my mind, and I thought it might be a good idea for he and I, from a male and a female perspective, to write a book. But before I end my piece, during that time period, I did transition because I started, one thing I looked at, we had a young daughter at the time, she was 2 years old. Everything I did, she did. And Kamau said, you know, when she looks at you straightening your hair in the mirror, she's gonna do the same thing. And sure enough, one day I saw her and she was mimicking me, straightening, you know, using a hot comb or whatever it is that she saw me do to keep my hair straight and not like this, like a natural hair, you know, like my natural hair. So I said, wow, she's really imitating what I do. I wanted her to be proud of herself. I can't teach her to be proud of herself, every part of her, if I wasn't proud of an aspect of me, which is our crowning glory. So that's when I made the decision to wear my hair natural. And that's when I started paying attention to the way women discuss their hair. And then it gradually progressed to, let's write a book. Now, Kamau, I guess he can pick it up from there, from his perspective.
Well, yeah, and your screen is for some reason freezing.
Yeah,
But anyway, anyway, yeah, that's pretty much the story. What had happened to me initially, I was taking an African culture course in the community, and the the gentlemen who were teaching the course, on one particular session, they were speaking about our hair and how beautiful and glorious it was. And actually, when they first started talking about it, all of us in the class were kind of snickering. But then we saw that they were very, very serious about what they were saying. It was the first time that I had heard anyone speak in such glowing terms of our hair, in such beautiful terms. And it just kind of knocked me over. And it made me ask, yeah, why are we laughing at our hair? Because our hair is a joke in most places, even till today. It's still the butt of many jokes. And so with that class, it caused me to question things. And one of the things, as my wife said, when I came home and I asked her why she straightened her hair. I was just curious, and she kind of cleaned up the story a little bit, but it was a knockdown, drag out almost. She went off on me. Why are you asking me about straightening my hair and so forth? And I was surprised at the reaction. And subsequently, I asked my mother.
Why were you surprised? I'm interested. You know, why were you surprised at the reaction?
Because I had never done that before. I had never asked a woman why she straightened her hair, and I didn't expect that kind of reaction.
Did your mother straighten her hair?
I really didn't.
Did your sisters? Did you grow up with like?
I don't have any sisters.
What about your mom?
My mother, and as I said, after I asked my wife, I asked my mother a few days later and got the same reaction.
Oh, wow.
Because I was seriously investigating. I'm like, why do you straighten your hair? And I wanted to know what they were going to say. And not only did I get that reaction from them, then I began to test it out. And then later on, one of my brothers joined me in the research where we would ask young ladies why they straighten their hair, just to see what they would say, if we would get the same reaction. And we always got that same volatile reaction. And so we knew that we had kind of hit on something. It's like, and I have been saying, you know, somebody needs to write a book about this. And I'm thinking that someone else is going to write a book. And someone said to me, why don't you write a book? And what had actually happened, I had started to write the book. I'd only gotten maybe 2-3 pages in. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. You know, if I write this book, women are going to have a problem with a guy saying this. So that's when I asked Janice, because as she said, we had been having dialogue. She was going through a transition with that. And I said, you know, would you want to write this book? We should write this book together. And so that's how it came to, the collaboration came about.
Why do you think that it's such a like hot topic. I mean, I remember as a kid, like we were afraid of water. Black women are afraid of water. When straight hair is a lot of maintenance. Like it's a lot of money to do the straightening. You can't get it wet. You can't.
Yeah.
You don't want anyone to touch it. You know,
Yeah.
you got to touch up that kitchen, like the edges. Like if you with a perm, like if you see the edges, well, you don't see the curl come back. So you don't want that to show. We're trying to straighten it. So like, why do you think that when you ask these women that they were so angry or they seemed angry? Do you think it's the way you asked? Do you think it was just a sensitive subject? Why do you think they were so angry?
Oh, it's a sensitive subject.
And
Good.
your screen is also, we need to explain we're in the mountains. So sometimes the connection goes off a little bit, but your screen also is freezing up a little bit, Kamau.
Really?
Just so you
I
know.
didn't notice it.
Yeah, I just saw it freeze up a little bit. But I think, our research showed us that this volatile subject comes from years of conditioning, that our hair was nappy, bad, good hair versus bad hair. So many words that are used in our community to describe natural hair, whether it's male or female, but more female. And so we had these role models in the media. And back in the 90s, there's more TV and radio and ads, advertisements and so forth, with the standard of beauty being a European woman with blonde hair, blue eyes, and long straight hair. That was not only a standard of beauty for white women, but also for Black women. So there's a lot of variables. This is not a simplistic subject. When you say why you think women were so volatile, it's layers of reasons why, between conditioning, historical reasons why, generationally speaking, and then societies, the way they view beauty, which and oftentimes, especially back then, did not include a Black woman with natural hair. So there are a number of reasons to that question. Kamau, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, well, but you asked was it because of the way that I asked the question?
Yeah, I was wondering why you felt that
Because
people were so reactive.
It's a sensitive subject. That's why.
Yeah,
So what do you
it's a
think,
sensitive
Professor? What do you think? Why do you
Yeah,
think that people were so? 'Cause you were
yeah, I
asking, you
tried.
were like,
I
"Oh my
tried
goodness."
asking.
People were asking, and when you asked, you felt like I almost saw your expression. You was like, "Oh my goodness!" You didn't even expect people to get so kind of. You didn't
Right.
expect it to be. You didn't do it to start anything. You just were really curious. But
Exactly. I wanted to see what reason they were going to give. And as you asked, was it the way I asked? And over a period of time, I would ask the question in different ways.
Okay.
Just to mess with people. Sometimes I would like, why are you straightening your hair? You know, I would do it like that. Sometimes I'm like, can I ask you a question? Why do you straighten your hair? I know that when I asked it in a more agitated way, I was going to get a definite aggressive
Agitated
response.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I played with that over the years, but why there's that type of response? Because what happened to us during enslavement, we were taught to hate ourselves, systematically taught to hate ourselves, our physical selves, our hair, our skin color, our nose, our lips. Our physical features were, during enslavement, denigrated, ridiculed, and at the same time, under racism, white supremacy, whites elevated and glorified their features as the more to be accepted, the ones to be accepted, their hair, their skin, their eyes, their features, and so forth. And we're talking about something that happened not over a couple of years, a few years, but we're talking about something that occurred over centuries, from generation to generation, that was passed down, the same dislike from the parents to the children, to the grandparents and the great-grandparents, and so forth and so on, and to right to where we are today. Those notions that were fed to us, systematically fed to us, and then we imbibe them and ourselves. We're doing in straightening the hair and so forth is an imitation of white people. That's where it started, in an attempt to be more accepted by them. And so and we kind of know this in the back of our mind, we know something is not right about this. And so when we're confronted about it, it's an attack. It's viewed as an attack. And I think that was what was happening with the response, some of the responses that we were getting. Because once I went back and talked to those women over a period of time, many of them after a while would they would go natural. And when I would ask them, well, why did you respond the way that you did? You can even ask Janice. It's because they felt they had to defend themselves. They had to defend. And how dare you, a man, because men were part of the problem when it comes, because we were also ridiculing Black women's hair, wanting it to be straight and so forth. So how dare you ask me why I'm straightening my hair, because this is what you have been conditioned to like. So you got a bunch of stuff going on in there, a ball of wax.
A lot of layers.
It's interesting that, Janice had mentioned about being a role model. Because I remember when I was a kid, I didn't straighten my hair forever. And people would say, your hair is so thick, why don't you straighten it? And it was like the opposite, like they wanted it straightened, it wasn't. But I thought it was interesting that you said that you wanted your daughter not to have the stigma and the bad feelings about her hair. So you did it. And because I've heard that story before, that women have said, I have a child and they're seeing me put all this stuff in my hair and do this and change my appearance. I take away an aspect of my culture, and I didn't want my child to feel like, oh, something's wrong with me because look, my hair is like odd or it's not straight or whatever. So can you talk a little bit more about that? I think that it was so interesting that you brought that up, Janice.
Absolutely, and paid off. It paid off. Being a role model for that, we have two daughters, and starting to wear my hair natural paid off. Eventually, I went to locks and wore locks for many, many years.
Okay.
So the girls were, I guess, 5 and 7 during that time that I was wearing locks when I first started, and so my oldest daughter had hair like yours, very, very thick. My hair is more of a very soft and kind of a wavier texture. Hers was more like her dad's, more thicker, and and I was using the wrong combing utensils too during that time, which I didn't know, which we talk about in our book. But it was World War III when I sat down to do the oldest daughter's hair, trying to comb it, and I'm not a braider. I don't know how to braid, and so so we had a lot of bad moments in combing, literally combing her hair and styling it and so forth. So I decided that I was going to lock it. Mine was locked, and she looked at me. She said, "I want my hair like yours." So I decided to lock it, and then the youngest daughter, who was 5, said, "I want mine locked too." She didn't know what she was saying, but I said, "Well, that's 2 heads of hair that I don't have to really have World War III with at this point." So I did lock it, and so to this day, both girls have worn their hair natural, never put any sort of chemical relaxer in their hair since they've been born. So the younger one just cut her locks off 2 or 3 weeks ago. She's worn her locks since she was 5, and she cut them short, long, let them grow, but she still wears her hair natural. Now she has a short natural. The other one, she cut her locks off when she got to college, because she felt a little, back then it wasn't as prominent as it is now. And she felt like she wanted to do something different to kind of fit in and assimilate into the college campus a little bit. And she cut them off, but she still wore her hair natural. And then she went back to locks again. So she's back. Both of them have, they love their hair. And that was our ultimate goal, was to raise girls that love their hair. Now our oldest daughter has 2 girls, twins, that we hope she'll do the same, which we're sure she will. Raise them the same way. So that's how it becomes generational. It has to start someplace.
It's like breaking a generational curse, like to if you like, I've always permed, like, in my family, I didn't want my hair straightened forever. And but when I was a kid, my father didn't want my hair braided. So
Mhm.
can you imagine my mother having to comb my hair every day and whatever? And so when they did get a perm for me, like I finally broke down because everybody's like, oh, it'll be like long. It was, but it was, they put the strongest perm ever. My hair is
Yes,
not kinky like that.
yes.
So my hair came out like that. And I was like,
Mhm.
I'm like, I would see the hair coming out and I'd be like, my hair is falling out because the perm was so strong. He was like, I'll just put a super in your hair. And it destroyed my
Mhm.
hair. So I had to start again. And
Yeah,
that
because I
was
had the
really
same problem. I
traumatic.
think a lot of us will have that same story. I had the same
Oh my
situation.
goodness.
My hair was, like I said, very soft. I went to a Dominican girl to for something. I don't remember, but I remember she said to me, she said, and this was before Kamau mentioned about the asked me why did I wear my hair straightened. She said, you know, you have really nice hair. Why do you put a relaxer in your hair? And she was, no one ever said that to me before either. She just said your hair is nice. So I'm like, what do you mean by nice? And you know, so then it goes back to that good hair, bad hair
Yes.
situation. But I did go to a woman one time and she put on my hair super and my hair fell out in the sink as I was washing it. And
It
she
was
put a
horrible.
coloring on it the next week. So I think a lot of women have those horror stories when it comes to, you know, to trying to the natural hair versus the straight hair. We're trying to see where we fit in, but we all have horror stories of our hair coming out. And that was another thing. I was tired of that at that point.
Yeah, my hair wouldn't grow. My hair grew so much when I stopped
Mhm.
putting the perm. Like I could never get like longer hair. Like I just blew my hair out to do a length check, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, your hair got so long," because when I had to relax, it was very drying and it would break. And I
Yes.
couldn't grow it because it would break. And I was like, you know what? I shaved my hair and I was like, what, 20, almost 30. And I shaved my hair to this short. I said, I went to a white salon. I said, cut it off because I can't. I'll just have short hair forever. And
Yeah.
amazingly, it grew. I was like, because everyone says Black people can't grow hair. That's another myth. You talk about in your book
Right.
about the myths of Black, it doesn't grow. You can't do this with it. I'm like, well, I'll just be short because the perm was literally taking my hair out. I can almost identify with people that have diseases that make their hair fall out. It is so demoralizing when your hair is in the sink or in the brush.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
what happened to my hair? And you did it
Absolutely.
to yourself. It's not a sickness. You did this. I was like, you know what? I'll just be bald. And I wanted to ask the professor,
Mhm.
a large part of it, because I write Christian romances, so I'm always talking about dating. So the women are talking about their hair. It's like a
Right.
lot of Black women, and I know I felt this, that how do Black men feel about our hair? Are they like, oh my gosh, it's so curly? I had women tell me, you'll never get a man with curly hair like that. You need to straighten that hair. And even on TV shows, they said men prefer straight hair. And a lot of women internalize that. So you see a lot of weaves, long weaves. Because I had a friend last
Mhm.
night, I told her I'm hopefully we'll meet with a friend. And she said, well, we can put a weave. I said, no, I have enough hair. If I want to straighten my hair, I will, but I'm not putting a weave. Because why do we feel as Black women that we have to have straight hair to attract a man? Do Black men prefer it? I mean, Professor, what do you think about that?
Well, you got a kind of mixed bag of apples there because you have to you must realize that Black men, just like Black women, we grew up in this white supremacist environment
Mhm,
where everything white is right and good and better.
mhm.
And so we have gravitated in a multiplicity of ways to imitate these people, hair being one of those ways in which we try to imitate them. And so that has been given to us as the standard
Mhm.
of beauty. And so that's the thing that was supposed to be sought after. And so if you're talking, I have to talk generationally now, because if you go back to when we first did the book in the 90s and the 80s and so forth, when you had people who are men who had grown up without seeing or without appreciating natural hair in women, except for a short period in the 70s with the afro and so
Yeah,
forth.
the
And
backwards,
then it
right?
went
Mhm.
away. But that generation is steeped in the straight hair thing. Now, as we've seen this evolution occur over the last 20 some years, 20 some odd years,
Mhm.
where we see more of our women wearing their natural hair in locks, in short sculpture styles and braids and so forth, those things have become, we have seen how beautiful that is. And so now you have a generation of Black men who do appreciate and like the natural hair in women, and women themselves have been more assertive in that area as well, as they should be, because when if a guy says, I only like women who wear their hair straight, and you don't want to wear your hair straight, then that is not the guy for you. Because the guy for you, he's gonna like you whether you wear your hair natural or not, on number one, and he should respect that. So you have young guys now who appreciate that, but you still have that lingering, a large segment of Black men who still want to see their women with that straight hair. And so, you know, when you say, do men prefer one or the other? Some do, some don't. In fact, what we found when we first initially did the book, a lot of men had been advocating for their wives or their girlfriends to wear their hair natural, but they wouldn't do it. And when they read the book for the first time, they went and did it. And the men were like, hey, ecstatic. That was part of the surprise that we discovered when we wrote the book. In fact, there was one particular incident that comes to mind. We did a book signing over in New York at this church, and the pastor had set it up like a talk show, like the Oprah Winfrey talk show or something like that. And when before we went to that event with him, he called us. I had come home and my wife said, this pastor from New York called you. He wanted to talk to you about the book and so forth. And I was like, well, I don't know what he wants to talk about, right? And so I thought he was going to be antagonistic. So when I got on the phone with him, he asked me, you know, are you with one of the authors of this book, Black Folks Hair and so forth? I said, yes, I am. He said, well, I want to thank you for writing this book. He said, I don't know what you all put in this book, but my wife read the book and she came home and she cut off all her hair.
Wow.
And he said, I've been trying to get her to do this for years. And I would know, and she would argue with me. She said, but she read you all's book and it was a done deal. And that's how we were invited to the church. So we've had cases like that. And so I say that to say that there are those men who appreciate that, want that in the women, but because they are, you know, because the society is the way it is, some of them are resistant to it.
So I wanted to ask you, Janice, did you feel that you needed to straighten your hair? Did you feel that your husband would prefer straighter hair? Is that why you really did it so long? Or did you think he liked it?
Nope, I actually straightened my hair through education and research and just kind of like, just developing more of a self-love for my entire being, which included my hair. So he just started that conversation and he started me thinking about all of that. And so whether he liked it or not, at that point, he had already created a monster, because I consider myself an information geek. And so I do a lot of research and I looked up, you know, on how to care for natural hair. You know, I just ran with it. And once I started wearing my hair natural, I liked the way I look better. I just thought it just brought out my features more. So he was telling me that, but I had to see it for myself. So I didn't really do it for him, because if I did, I probably would have gone back to straightening by now. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, did you go out with people with straight hair? Did your family have straight hair culture?
Yeah, during that time that I was growing up as a teenager, as I mentioned before, it was a ritual to get, I had, wore my hair natural as a little girl, but 13, 14, and a lot of my friends during that age, that was a ritual to get your hair straightened because you're old enough now. See, you're considered too young under 13. Back then, you were considered young. Used to be,
Used
yeah.
to
Now,
be.
so we've heard stories of people straightening their 3-year-olds' hair, which we
Yeah, I've
thought
seen that too. I think it's
atrocious
young.
because the kid, your child is developing and the scalp is tender. There's this crazy stuff. But anyway, so that was never a big thing. I do know one time I stayed at one of my relatives. My mother, I think I was maybe 7 or 8. I stayed with one of my relatives, and she straightened my hair, and my mother was livid. She went crazy. She said, she straightened your hair. She shouldn't have straightened your hair. That was the only time I remember below 13, 14, below that age of dealing with any type of hair straightening. But it was understood at 13 or 14, we're going to get you a relaxer so your hair could be better.
Oh, you mean not
more.
just pressing, you mean relaxer.
This was relaxed, yeah. And I had a group of friends all in that same category where at 13, 14, they began to get relaxers, and they were wearing it. We were all wearing our hair straight. Chemically relaxed, So and it wasn't a big deal with my mother. She fit into the same mold. So again, I did that up until late 60s, early 70s, when the the so-called Black Power movement, and they're calling us militants because we had big fros. I had a huge fro, little fro, proudly wore my fros, loved it. But then went to college, got through college, and got a job as a teacher, a high school teacher, and I assimilated back into wearing my hair straight again.
What do you mean by assimilate? Do you think that working in that environment, people all had straight hair, and
just being in an environment that's going to accept me because back then an afro was compared to being a militant, or Angela Davis, or that time period. So I guess I got to a point where, okay, well, I'm not going to have that Angela Davis. I'm just going to have that European straight look with the relaxer, and went on my merry way.
But you got to remember here, people weren't thinking, well, I'm going to have this straight hair like the Europeans and so forth. That's not what Black people were thinking.
No.
Black people were thinking that I'm going to be more beautiful. I'm going to be more acceptable.
But it does come from conditioning. Yeah. That comes from conditioning. That thought pattern.
It does. It does. I agree, because you watch Malcolm X in the scene where he's in the shower and the man's like, why are you straightening your hair? And he's like, well, everybody outside has it. Like, Malcolm is so into it that he's putting that stuff, and it was lye in his hair to get his hair straight like that. And he was like, why you hate, the man was like, why do you hate yourself? And he's like, I don't hate myself. I just want to look good. Like it's a subconscious thing that we don't even really think about, and we pass it on all the time. And if you have children, like you said, your daughters had different hair textures. Sometimes I've seen in families where like the child that has the lighter skin and the straighter hair may be seen more attractive than the darker person. And even in media, I would like to ask you about media, because when I remember in the 90s, like if you look at shows like A Different World and like Cosby Show, they were really big, and the other shows, Family Matters, those girls all had straightened hair. You very rarely saw, like, I think Lisa Bonet she was considered like a kind of odd with her kind of hair, but it was kind of seen as an odd thing. All of those characters had straightened hair. So that was all the videos. If you look at the hip hop videos, and all those women had a certain complexion. They didn't go darker, and the hair was straightened. And so we are kind of seeing these standards, and we're thinking, well, we need to do that. And if you fall outside of that, well, then
even when you look at today's so-called celebrities and singers and all that a lot of them, not all of them, but a good portion of them still wear weaves. Like I look at Beyonce, whom I love, but she always has a weave when she's in, she's doing her thing. She and a good lot of them have their weaves, because that is what they want. For some reason, they want to portray that straight hair look. And you have a lot of younger folks nowadays who still fall into that trap, and their hair is coming. They're losing their hair as well by wearing the weaves with the glues and all that kind of stuff. So
we're just over the top of it, right? We're over the top, because I have a cousin, and she, like, in my family, there's like, it's a mixture, like most Black people, and her hair came out more straight and it was long, but everyone said, don't touch your hair. It's not bone straight, it's more wavy, and she straightened it anyway, and she really damaged her hair doing that. Like, she didn't have, her hair was wavy and to begin with, and it was very long, and why even go there? But we have to get over the top. Like, I remember when I was in school, it was the really straight styles, and my hair did not do that. So, and you're so afraid of water Like, you want to get a black woman mad, just bring water around when she got her hair done. It was like a fight.
Let's talk about going to the beach. Let's
Forget
go to
it.
the beach.
You're not going to the beach.
I want to go in the water.
You're not going near water. Because you don't want to sweat it out. I remember sweating it out, and then it would, because I didn't like perm, so I would have them press it. It would cost me like $40 to $50 to press. And then in the summer, you almost have to get that done every week, because any little sweat, it would bump up and it would be looking, it would stick, you'd have cowlicks all over with it. And it was just crazy. And I spent so much money changing it.
Well, that was one of the excuses that we used to get from a lot of Black women. Even in the book, if you read that, we did a poll. Why do you wear your hair natural, and why do you straighten your hair? And a lot of people said, we straighten our hair, I straighten my hair because it's easier to manage. Well, I did both. And I can tell you right now, having my natural hair texture is definitely easier for me to take care of. I had never had a bad hair day since I wore my hair natural. Because I'm not afraid of water. I'm not afraid of it, quote unquote, going back.
You can live.
Yeah. So once they tried both, the problem that we discovered is that many Black women who transitioned to natural hair, because they didn't know how to care for their natural hair, because they always care for straightened hair or relaxed hair, they didn't know how to take care of their natural hair. Well, that's changed a lot now. There's so many more products for Black women.
Why is that changed? Why is that changed?
Because more and more women started wearing their hair natural. So there's a lot of information. This is a lot of information because of social media. There are countless YouTube, what do you call them? Videos on how to care for your natural hair.
And personalities, right?
We didn't have that years ago.
No, we didn't.
So,
and it was hard
so
to, I mean, you have different hair textures, right? You see some with the straighter hair, some with the
4A, 4B, all of that stuff.
3A, 3B, all that.
Black women didn't know what that meant. But now it's a lot of information out there. So that's why you see so many women now who embrace their natural hair. That's one of the reasons. Because now there's information out there to help you care for your hair. Because hair is a big thing for us. We want it to look nice. And there's products out there, countless products. All you do is go on Amazon. You see all kinds of products for Black hair.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about trends, because when you said you started the book in '96, but you've made updates. So tell me, Professor, what have you noticed as far as trends on how people, well, you said the first, everyone was wearing straight hair, but now you see a shift and you see the natural hair market is really taking off. And there's all kind of new natural hair. I think even like the mainstream companies all have a natural hair line. Like Dove has one, Pantene has one. They never had that before. So talk a little bit about, the trends. What have you seen with the trends, and how's that impacted your book?
Yeah, the trends that you see that are happening now, when we first wrote the book, we predicted them. We talked about what would happen. Number two, because there's two things that we talk about in the book. We have a chapter on the health of the hair and so forth. The chemicals that were used in the hair, you had at that time in the mid 90s, people were becoming more health conscious. And we had said that because of that, you're going to have more Black women begin to wear their hair natural, because they're buying into the health conscious trend that was going at the time. They're eating healthier, they're exercising and so forth. And then they have to deal with going to the salon and having these chemicals put on their hair that was incongruent with that. And so that's part of what led that growth, that trend to where it is today. The other part of that is the natural hair salon business. When we first started, when we first wrote the book, we included in there a list of natural hair care salons around the country. And I think we had like about 40 salons that were in the book. When we redid the book, and I think the first time we did it was in 2005 or something like that. Yeah. And I did a survey of the natural hair care salons at that point. And there were over 300, almost 400 salons across the world at that point. And the last time I did it, it was just, I can't even count it. That has been one of the trends that has propelled this thing, because women, Black people, are learning how to take care of their hair as before. That allows them to do that. And that's what Janice said, the products that are now available that weren't available before. And the last part of what you have this phenomenon known as critical mass. When you have in the social arena, when you have a number of people to do a particular thing, and then it gets to a point where a certain number of people do this thing, then all of a sudden everybody does it. That's a critical mass. So for example, if you go back into the 1960s, there were a few people that started wearing the afros, and a couple more people started wearing the afros, and a few more. And the next thing you know, everybody was wearing afros.
Yeah.
That was a critical mass.
Even white people.
And so what you,
yes, that was true.
Even white people.
Yes.
Yeah. And so what you have now, because you look at it now, just look at locks. Like I've been wearing locks for for almost 30 years, close to 30 years. When we first wrote the book, I was wearing locks, and we would go places in this country. Janice and I, like we went to Florida for a book interview for a radio station down there. And we were like an abnormality. Black people were like, how did y'all get your hair like that? It was like outside of the New York, New Jersey area, it was an abnormality at that time. But then more people started wearing locks. You started seeing locks here. Then all of a sudden, you see everybody wearing locks. It hit a critical mass. And there's that acceptance for the health reasons and for the cultural reasons. We've got more of our people are getting more and more into our culture and identifying with the African culture, and hair is part of that. It's something to be proud of. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And we realized that we were taught that for almost 400 years to be ashamed of our hair and other features.
Okay. Can you tell us, Janice, about your transition journey? You said you cut your hair off, right? And then you went into locks. Can you talk about that journey? Because people think, a lot of times people feel like, oh, if I just cut the perm out, like it'll just be easy to deal with your natural hair. But there's a process to dealing with that too.
Yeah, it is a process. My process actually goes back to when I was pregnant with my second child. Because when he first brought up the idea of the straight hair, we had the one daughter. A year or two later, then I was pregnant with the second daughter. At that point, I was clear on what I wanted to do. So during my pregnancy, in order to let the perm, the relaxer, we call it perm, but relaxer grow out, I got braids. And I wore braids the whole pregnancy. And when those braids were taken out, I had, which I've always had back then, a lot of hair, but I had a head full of just like this thick natural hair. And I was like, wow. Because I wasn't putting any straighteners in. It was just like thick and whatever. And I wore it like that for a while once the second child was born. But then I went back to work, and I wanted to have something where I didn't have to spend so much time with my hair. So then that's when I transitioned to getting it cut very short, almost similar to what I have now. Because I go short, like I was going short every couple of years. So I cut it very, very short for the first time in a long time. And then that's when that whole lock era, I started noticing locks and how beautiful and glorious they look. I just fell in love with locks. Kamau decided he was going to lock. I said, well, I'm going to lock too, because I just like the way it looks. Knowing that it would put you in, it locks you into a certain way to do your hair, which I didn't care at that point, because that's sort of such a regal look. So he and I got locks around the same time. He got them, and then I think, Kamau, you got them 1 week, and then I get them the next month. Then I got him something like that. That. So I followed him. I got locks. So I let my hair get very long into locks, and did that for 18 years. So, and then after that, and this is one of the excuses we used to hear from Black women in terms of, well, I don't want to lock my hair. And that's not the only way you can wear your hair natural. But if we would hear people say, well, I don't want to lock my hair into a certain position. So I said, you know what? Maybe I'll just cut off my locks to show people there are different things you can do, to be an example, a role model for Black women. So after 18 years, I cut them off, and I went back to a very short look. And then I was going back and forth. But for me personally, everybody has to find their own niche. Personally, I love the short, tapered on the side, more on the top look. That's just me. and it works for me, and it's very easy for me to take care of, especially with the busy and active lifestyle. So everybody's journey is going to be different. Now, if you ask me in terms of products, because that did come into play, well, what do I put on my hair? I didn't have to use a lot of product. And I'm not a heavy product person because I don't like the way your hair feels when you have a lot of product in here. I like kind of like to go with my natural curl. So I found some, you have this journey. Once you wear your hair, whatever way you're going to wear it, what product works for your hair? And that's where a lot of Black women have issues. I have, and I've thrown away so many different products, but that's okay because everybody's hair texture and the way they deal with their hair is going to be different. Everybody's journey is different in terms of what works on your hair. So I've tried a multitude of products. I finally found what works for me, and I stick with it. So that's every woman's personal journey to find the product that's going to make your hair look the way you want it to look and make you proud that you're wearing your natural hair. That's one of the biggest problems of going natural, but it's not insurmountable. Okay. Well,
one of the things about the products that Janice mentioned in the book, we had a chapter on the economics. We dealt with the whole products piece because what we tried to do over the years, we always tried to use products that were made by Black people, Black companies and so forth. And what we found when we were doing the research on the book, the initial book, was some of the products that we think or products that are produced and made by Black people were actually products that were made by white companies or white people, but they put names on them to fool us, like African pride. That was one of the most eye-opening ones for me, that this company owned by these white guys in New York used the name African Pride, and they had the colors red, black, and green. And they actually had the audacity to try to sue a Black-owned hair products company, Bonner Brothers down in Atlanta, over the name Africa. And so what we put in the book, we had a list of hair products that were made by Black owned companies versus those that were made by white owned companies, because when we looked at that industry, it's a booming industry, billions of dollars,
lots of money. Black people pay lots of money.
A lot of those dollars were being swindled out of our communities and so forth. So we try to bring attention to that. So when you talk about the products now, you have a bevy of Black owned products from which to choose. So we can be very selective, like I think you mentioned, like you have some of the bigger white hair companies now that are offering natural products for Black women, because they know that there is money in that. My position on it is, hey, don't buy products from them. Buy products from your own people. They know, but that's a hard argument to sell.
Can you
I know in some cases.
Because I'm listening to what you said, and Maggie Anderson, I don't know if you know her, she wrote a book called Our Black Year, and she's challenged people to support like Black owned beauty supply stores and Black owned brands. And like she said, the transition started, most of them before all this was owned by Black owned, but then people started noticing how much money was being made through these companies, and white businesses have slowly started, and other groups have really made a targeted attempt to really buy up all the Black brands, like all of them. Some of them were Black owned, and then they're no longer Black owned because they've been bought out. Can you like talk to that a little bit, and how did you, I don't know if you researched that in your book or talked about that, how that process happened? I think you guys kind of mentioned that in your book, right?
That process is not just the European countries. One of the biggest ones are the Koreans. There was, and I used to show this film in my class. It was a film that was done some years ago about how the Koreans were dominating the Black hair products industry. And it goes all the way back to the 1960s, where the US government helped sponsor them and helped finance them and set them up in America to do this. It's a diabolical thing to do this. And so it's no wonder that when you go to certain parts of the country, in our communities, you see that the hair stores, the hair product stores are dominated by the Koreans. And in this particular film, in Chicago, for example, they did a survey. They were doing like a street survey, and there were over 300 some natural or hair care products stores in Chicago. And they went to the Korean stores and asked them how many Korean-owned stores are there in Chicago. And later was like, I don't know, just about 300, something like that. And she said, how many are owned by Blacks? She said, Blacks? She said, you know, like that was like, Blacks shouldn't be in this market. Out of the 300 and some stores that were there, I think about less than 10 were owned by Black ownership in Chicago, as well as in California. And what they were doing is they were forcing those companies, those Black-owned companies, to go out of business so that they could come in and take over the market. It's an interesting story. And so we see that today. We see if we go into these places without thinking about where we're spending our dollars, you know, we unconsciously spend our dollars not only with the Europeans, but others who have no interest in our communities at all.
Yeah, I heard about them using out Black people. I heard about with the hair weave and I mean, a lot of it, like you can't get into it. And like a lot of people are saying, well, why don't Black people own beauty supply stores? It is very hard for them to break into that market, even though you go into the store, these people, I'm like, you can't speak to my hair because Black people have very distinctive hair. Like our hair is, nobody has hair like us. It is the curl of it, the kink of it, whatever you want to call it, it's distinctive. So if you're going into a store and you run into someone and they don't even have your hair texture, how will they be even able to talk to it and say, well, this worked on my hair? Or, you know, it's a different thing when you can speak from what you know than what you heard, you know. And with hair, it's such a personal thing with women that we do kind of want that. And I'm like, well, why don't Black people own? Because I did something too. I said, why don't we own any? And it's like like you said, that's been something that's not by accident.
It's design. It's design. It's by design.
Right.
It's by design to shove us out, to keep us out of that market. And because they know, I mean, you're talking about a lot of money, a lot of money. And so someone outside of, if you think about this, somebody outside of our community, whether white or Asian or wherever, they actually looked at our community, studied our community and said, you know, these people, they spend a lot of money on their hair. How can we go? And they deliberately and calculatingly came and set up shop in our community. And we unconsciously allowed them to do it because all we have to do to get control of it is like, just don't go and support them. Because none of us would be able to go into any Korean community anywhere in the world and set up a shop and dominate any industry whatsoever, because they would not come and support us. No, so that's a development that we have to come to a consciousness.
Well, didn't they try? Because I remember as a kid, they used to have the Black lady and it was proudly Black owned. I remember looking at bottles like that, and I would try to get products like that, and it was like you know, I would try to get them. And I'm doing Maggie Anderson's challenge, so I have found a Black beauty supply store and I buy stuff. Now I can't buy exclusively stuff because some of the products that, like, you know, some of these people that are releasing products don't release in Black owned stores. They're Black owned, but they don't release in Black owned stores. So you got to go to some of the bigger chains to get them. But I do try to, like, once a month, like, make sure I go to the beauty supply store and do it. But, you know, even when you go into the stores, like, they don't even know which ones are Black owned and which ones aren't. I don't think that Black lady symbol is being used anymore. And so when you go there,
it's still used. It's still used. In fact, we put it in our book. It's in there. I don't know if I kept it in there.
But everybody's not using it. All Black owned brands don't have it on there.
Yeah.
Because I found a list of Black owned, like Eden and other people, and I'm like, it's not on here for me to determine. Like, you have to really research Like who is making it? And you're right, it is a money thing. It was something that even with like baseball, it became integrated, but baseball, Black people had their own and they had their own thriving business around it. When it became integrated, that didn't go over with it. It was great to see them on TV, but there were no Black managers and no captains. None of that came. The businesses didn't come. So it's just like, oh, we'll just take the best players and we'll make them our league. But all the industry behind it kind of fell apart when that happened.
Exactly.
And the same thing with Black hair. Like, it almost seems like it's, how could such a group come over here and so calculating, like you said, most of the time when you go in the store, they're not Black owned and they don't, it's not their, not that anybody can't do whatever, but that shift, it seemed almost calculated in a way, like you were saying, because how come, and even the products, like, Black people, like with CJ Walker, Madam CJ Walker, she started with, different hair products, not just perms, but like how to grow your hair, how to treat different conditions. And she made a lot of money off of that. And she became a millionaire. And so now,
ironically, the first person to become a millionaire in the Western world here, African person to become a millionaire, became a millionaire off of hair products.
Yeah, beauty,
of our hair.
But you think too, when you look at the African, even in Africa, like Black women have always been like with the hairstyles and the makeup, it's something that's in us that we just like to have different, and our hair lends itself to be flexible to do different things. Like, oh, you can wear the short one like you have, or you can wear it long, you could wear it sticking up. I mean, you could wear it 1,000 different ways because we have that. Other people have to really work to get what comes to us kind of natural. So I think that's why. But it is shocking to see so many products and stuff that are not Black owned, like you said, try to support your own.
Yeah. You have to be conscious. You have to make a deliberate buying decision. And a lot of things are online now. There are a lot of places online that exclusively carry or talk about Black businesses, not just for hair, but Black businesses that we can support online. There's a big one that's on. I mean, they cover just about everything. I don't care what it is you want. You can find a Black business that that makes that product and so forth. And they're good. They're quality things. Even as far as Africa, products in Africa and so forth are on that list. And so it's there. We just have to be conscious enough to make the decision.
We have to look for it. So I wanted to ask you, before we close, I do want to see people want to know how they can get your book. Where's it, how they get it. Maybe you could show us the book and tell us how we can get it.
Okay, the book is available on Amazon. This is the book, Black Folks Hair Revisited: Shame, Secrets, Shame, and Liberation. This is our website, trueblackhair.com. You can go there. You can buy the book from on here you can buy the ebook here, or you can go to the Amazon and you can buy the book. You can buy the ebook, or you can buy a paperback on Amazon. Either way, you can get.
Do you if you do sell on your website or no?
That's it. Yes, the website. It will link you out to to Amazon in particular.
Okay.
And the ebook, if a person wants an ebook, all of these, there are tons of places where you can get an ebook. Nook, iBook, Kindle, Kobo, Indigo, all of these places. People who are in the ebooks, they would know where to go. They got a wide selection here. But Amazon, of course, you can get the ebook or you can get the paperback.
So she's asking, can they order through us directly?
Yes.
I think Candace wants to know, can we get to us directly, Kamau?
And would you have autographed copies if they order through you directly? Would they get an autographed copy?
Yeah, you can do that. We have a limited number of books like that. If someone wants to autograph copy, yes, they can get in touch with us at our website, info, or by the email, info@trueblackhair.com. info@trueblackhair.com.
And your website is trueblackhair.com, right? They want to read more about it. Is this your only book, or are you planning to do other books?
Well, this is the only book that we've done together. I've written a couple other books before that. I wrote a book, The Confessions of a College Professor, which deals with how students can get better grades. And then I redid that book, and it's titled The 7 Most Dangerous Pitfalls Threatening Your College Success, that book. And I am in the process of writing another book. Let me take this down. This book should be out by early spring, I suspect. I am trying to finish it up now. Let me see if I can bring this up here.
So what's the topic of this book that you're talking about?
Oh, you're gonna like this. The title of this book, let me come back to Zoom and over here. The title of this book is The White People's Show: How to Understand Racism and Still Be Wrong About It.
Okay.
That's coming out this spring, let's say. And it's a book written primarily to Black people, African people, about racism, white supremacy. How to properly, because there's a whole lot of confusion around that phenomena now, and it's back on the scene, and I want to clear up some things. And I have a fellow that I'm going to introduce you in there, Mr. Will Seawright. He's making his debut in this particular book, but I have him on some blog stuff as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are there any final thoughts that you want to leave us with, Janice? You know, about this whole
Yeah, you know what? As an educator, my motto, specifically with this topic, but in general, has always been, and I autograph my books the same way. I don't change because I want to put it in people's faces. This is the way I'm thinking, is that the more we learn, the less we fear. And I think that sums up a lot of the information that Kamou and I have been trying to get out, no matter what the topic is once you learn something, knowledge is power, but it's power if it's used. So once you, if it's known, so once you learn something, then you tend to not fear it as much. So as I would say to my Black brothers and sisters, and some of my white brothers and sisters who have gone through this hair journey as well, we discovered that when we wrote the book and did our research and all that and interviews and so forth, is that learn about your hair, learn about your God-given features and embrace it and learn how to take care of it. Once you get past that hurdle, then you know, you're good to go. So the more we learn, the less we fear. That is my motto.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you both for joining me today. I've been enlightened, and you know, I read the book, and it was just eye-opening, and it just gave so much information. I will put in the comments how you can get the book, how you can link up with the authors. It'd be preferable to get it from their website if you can, because they do autograph copies. So this is Candace Waller, Christian fiction author. I have 2 books out, What Goes Around Comes Around, and Good Things Come, signing off. Thank you and have a great day, and thank you to my guest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For having me.